Today is April about the 10th,
Yep.
2025. I am 89 years old. And 89 years old, I don't have an awful lot of time left. Even though I'm in good health, time is against me. So I want to record what Neil and I talked about just now for the family so that they have some idea what happened to their family. Not you were not born then. And I'm going to start in 1940 when I'm 4 years old, and I'm going to finish about January the 10th, 1946. Okay, so let's start. We lived in Riga, Latvia, and my dad worked for the town or the city of Riga, which is the capital city of Riga. And we lived in what the Finns call a sauna, a public sauna. Public meaning you could get hundreds of people in there to take a sauna. So we had living accommodation there, and we lived in this particular picture. We lived in two of them, but I'm starting with the first one. And I think I'm about 4 years old because my dad is getting Ava me all pounced up because he wants to take a photograph. Let me explain pounced up. A new hat, new coat, new jacket, new shirt and tie, new short pants, new knee-length socks, and new shiny boots. And Ava and I are holding hands, walking towards Pop, who is working at Brownie Box Camera. And he took a few of these photographs, Ava and me, and I can tell that it's fairly cold out there because of the way that everybody is dressed on the photograph. Okay, after that we moved to the second. We moved house from one pirti, it's called pirti, a public bathhouse. We moved to another one, also in Riga, but on the outskirts of it. So downtown is quite a way. Even though Riga is not a big city, it probably had a population of 500,000. So we moved to the other pirti, which is bigger and better, and living accommodation is better, and so on. We lived there from the summer of 1940 till about March time, 1945, 41. Okay, I can remember the Christmas party in 1940, and you've all met my cousin Jenny. Well, Jenny is on the photograph as well. A lot of people there, Christmas trees there. I remember my own man, Dad, snuffing out candles with his fingers. Little things like that. I could carry on forever and ever, but I'm trying to make it fairly brief and sound normal and natural as if I'm talking to my family, which is what I am. And then, early 41, like I said, it might have been March time, I'm not sure, we decided to move to Germany. And I can show you on the map here. Neil, maybe you can give me a hand.
Mm-hmm.
There's a town. My eyesight is no help.
Yeah, I need my glasses.
Even putting glasses on. Here, take my glasses.
And can I just ask what the reasoning was to move to Germany?
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a town called Würzburg.
Oh, okay.
About here somewhere.
Well, yeah.
See if you can, maybe you can see where I'm pointing. Where's Berlin? Is that Berlin here?
Yeah, no, it's Germany.
Berlin?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's up here. Big block.
Oh, okay.
Here?
No, we're in Poland there.
Ah, that's no good. That's got to be Berlin.
Yeah.
There. Okay,
Anyway, yeah, carry on.
So we moved to a town called Vernac. It's got a palace in it. And we actually lived in a palace. But before we got there, the nearest big town is Würzburg.
I see it right here.
Pardon?
Right up here.
What's that?
No, sorry, Wittenberg.
No, Würzburg, down
Oh, in Schwerin?
Schwerin.
Yeah.
And what I haven't mentioned up to now, our family in those days consisted of Mom, Dad, Ava, me, Val, and a younger brother called Urs. He, on this particular trip to Germany, he died in a town called Schweinfurt, which is near Wernick, and that's the place that got the palace that we lived in. And we lived there for about 9 months. I actually went to school there. And one of the things that really comes to mind regarding Wernick is we were sitting on a palace wall, little kids, I'm 5 years old now, little kids sitting on the wall watching the bell towers, the bells being lowered from the tower by rope, and propaganda music blaring, propaganda military music blaring on loudspeakers, and the German army, truck after truck after truck, hundreds of trucks, full of soldiers, and each and every truck was towing a cannon behind it. And I assume, because it's 1941, it's round about June, Hitler declared war on Russia on June the 22nd, 1941. It was called Operation Barbarossa, June the 22nd. So just the movement of the troops might have been a little later than June the 22nd. But anyway, it's round about that time. And a couple of months from then, Av and I go to school on top of the hill. And Wernick is a beautiful little village. Nice church. Housing fits the palace itself. The palace is like Buckingham Palace, only not as big. And like I said, we lived there for about 9 months. My dad decides to join the German army. And because the Germans are knocking the shit out of the Russians, he feels it's safe for us to go back to Latvia. So from Wernick, we had to go up to Würzburg, from Würzburg to Berlin. In Berlin, he put us on a train for Latvia, for Riga, Latvia. And he joined the German army. So he goes one way and we go the other way. In actual fact, we went east and so did he. He was on the Russian front.
So he wasn't conscripted, he just signed
he
up.
joined because he wanted to.
Yeah, because Russia was the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, while Hitler invaded Poland, the Russians invaded the Baltic states, i.e. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. When we got back to Latvia, it was occupied by the Russians. But we lived with my mom's sister's family, which consisted of, they lived in a bungalow. The bungalow was like a duplex, 2 families. My mom's sister and her husband and a daughter. Her name was Ausma. She was 12 years old when I was 5 years old. And the other half of the house, Uncle Herbert was Tante Nattes, that's mom's sister.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Herbert was the brother of the people that occupied the other half of the bungalow. So it wasn't a big bungalow, but let me tell you what the other people had. In their half of the bungalow, they had a grand piano. And they had a daughter, her name was Velta. And she played the violin, as did Ausma, my cousin. They also played tennis. They had beautiful little costumes, and they had tennis balls in a net bag. You've all seen these net bags. Well, that's what they had. And let me see, they played violin, I mentioned that, yeah.
So you would hear the grand piano through the walls kind of thing?
Or built a house around it. You put it first and then start building.
Well, but I mean, you could hear somebody playing the grand piano. And...
not in our particular case.
No, okay.
The house was detached. I assume the 2 brothers, Herbert and I don't know the other guy's name, but they had about 4 or 5 acres and mature apple trees, plum trees, cherry trees, gooseberry bushes, black currants, red currants, strawberries, all that. A great big root cellar. Root cellar was overgrown with trees grown on top of, something like the dog houses in Port Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Like that on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
Okay. Then one particular time we had a public school right across the road from us, and we are fenced in by a board fence that's about 2 meters high, and you cannot get into the property unless you ring a bell first and somebody comes out to let you in. Not only did it have a man gate, it also had two gates that you could open up, and a horse and cart or a truck could pull into the yard. It did not have inside plumbing of any kind, so we had a pump outside and the toilet was outside, and the toilet had to be emptied once in a while. I was witness to it being done one time. And across the road we have a school, a public school. I think kids up to about 11 or 12 went to that school. So, one day the bell is being rung. A woman from the house and myself, we went out. I don't know who she was. A visitor or a cousin or aunt or whatever. Somebody that I don't remember. We went out and opened the gate, and there's a Jew standing at the gate, at the door, the door in the fence, and he's begging for something to eat. So we go back inside. There's a Jew at the door and he wants something to eat. Okay, make him a sandwich and tell him to go. Everybody's scared. So this is what we did. This woman and I, we went out again. She gave him the sandwich and told him, go, which he did. Maybe a little while after, I don't know, maybe a month after or whatever, I don't remember. I'm 6 years old now. And once again, our attention was attracted by something, so we go out, open the gate, or the door in the fence. We open that, and there's a row of Jews being marched towards the school. I could see 100 meters up the road, and then the road took a bend, and the Jews kept on coming and coming. Mostly women and children, and occasional men. And they were all at gunpoint being marched into the schoolyard. At a rough guess, I would say there might have been about 300 of them. I really don't know, but they kept on coming and coming, so there were a lot of them. I don't know what the end of what happened to the Jews, but I can imagine.
Probably not good.
Not good.
Didn't you recognize the fella?
The one at the door?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, he was a tall young man, dressed in a dark suit. Then my dad came home for my birthday, March the 5th. And he's in German uniform. He didn't tell me or tell us because we're kids, but he is taking us to Germany again. Now I got to give you a little background here. My dad's sister, that'll be Renate's mother. You've all met Renate and Hubert. My Tante Irene is Renate's mother. And there's another daughter, Inge. Inge was 2 years old when Renate was about 10 months old. And what's her name? Irene, Tante Irene, she was a nurse. And there was a Stuka pilot that was shot down by the Russians. And he crash landed his plane and he was hurt. And he was in hospital, and my Aunt Irene, Tante Irene, she was his nurse. She brought him back to good health. He's still in the German Air Force, but they fell in love and they got married. And Tante Irene moved to a town called Schwerin. Schwerin is about here somewhere. I'll spell it for you. Schwerin, Northern German. I'm pointing more or less where it might be. And a little north and a little east of Schwerin is a town called Sternberg. There, a town in your honor.
Which we have
Sternberg.
Pictures of Val standing in front of.
And me.
And you, yep.
And Ava. And Val and Ava.
Yeah, I haven't seen those, but yeah.
In 1989. Okay. So what am I at? Oh, Tante Irene has moved to Schwerin and she's a nurse. My dad, it's about March the 5th, 1943 now. Yes, 1943. So we live with Tante, what's her name again?
Irene?
Not
Oh, sorry.
that's Mum's sister. We lived there for a year and a bit. And so Pop is taking us first and foremost to Schwerin because he wants to see his sister. So we stayed with her for one night, and she had to go off to work. But before Tante Irene went off to work, she made some milk soup. And that milk, I'd never had milk soup before, and it was so good that I asked her for a second helping. Fast forward to 1999. We're at a family do with Renata and Hubert, and Tante Irene is there. She called me over like a naughty little boy, and she said she could remember when I asked for a second helping of milk soup. She reminded me in 1999. And the first time I asked for the soup in 1943. So, all right. From there, we went to my dad in uniform. And he has to go, he's on leave, but he has to go back to the Russian front. I'm trying to point to you approximately. Like I mentioned just now, my eyesight is no help. Even with glasses, I can't see. There are towns like north of Berlin, about 100 kilometers north of Berlin. There's a town called Weinsberg, Wesenberg, that's a W, Germans call that a V, W-E-S-E-N, Berg, Wesenberg, and Karno, shown on some maps, but not on most maps. And near Karno is a town called Fürstenberg and Ravensbrück. Ravensbrück is a concentration camp. It's housed by Jewish women who make uniforms for the German military. And Karno is approximately 10 miles from Ravensbrück, the concentration camp. It had 2 ovens at the back of the camp. If you couldn't work no more, you went in the oven. And when we lived in the Karno, if the wind was in the wrong direction, they're burning Jewish bodies again, we used to say. So we knew there was a concentration camp there. Okay, now what else do I want to say? We lived in Ghana for 2.5 years. And the war finished on May the 1st, but between that, there's a few things I want to mention. Ava, Val and I, we went to school. It was a one-room schoolhouse. The village of Kano itself, it's spelled C-A-N-O-W. The W is not pronounced, it's Kano. And it's in between 2 lakes. And we had 2 bridges going from one lake to the other. We used to call it the old bridge and the new bridge. The new bridge was built in the 30s. The only bit of asphalt paving that we had was on the new bridge. The rest of the paving in the village of Kano was cobblestone. There was only 1 store there, 1 blacksmith shop, 1 school like I mentioned. I don't remember a church being there, but if there was, it had to be the biggest building in the village, but I don't remember it. But then we had a little park called Unter den Linden. That means underneath the linden trees. It's a bit of a park. The approximate size of that was 100 meters by 100 meters. It was all wooded. I don't recollect there being any shrubs or flowers or any of that, just trees and the odd chestnut tree. All right, so we move in with a Streckert family. That is Uncle Arthur, who is married to my Tante Irene. He's married to her, and he came home on leave a couple of times. And he has a leather support for his hand, left hand, from the wrist right across to his hand. He could move his fingers, but he had to have the support. He was a big man. Every time I saw him, which is twice, he was in uniform. So we moved in with a stricken family. There was an old woman there, probably 65 years old, and a bunch of younger women, daughters I assume, and a granddaughter. The women kept on coming and going, so maybe they weren't permanent residents, but some of them must have been. And there were no men around. We did not have a man in the house, and there were no young men in the village at all. No young men of any kind, any age. There's the odd gun, old man might have been about 70 years old. I'd like to tell you what happened one particular time. I think I'm still 7 years old, so it might have happened in June. I started school, this is approximate, May the 9th, March the 9th or March the 10th, somewhere around that, in 1943. I think it was June 1943, so we've been there about 3 months now. Some kid came running into school. He said, there's a plane that's been shot down, lots of dead bodies. To the little kids, that's exciting stuff. So we all go running around the back of the lake, and sure enough, there's a plane there with lots of bodies. I'll describe the setting or some of the bodies. One body came down head first, went straight down head first into soft ground. So he was waist deep, with his legs sticking up. And right by the side of him, very similar to that, he came down feet first, waist deep, from the waist upwards. And they didn't have a hat on their head, and they all had brocream. I didn't know about brocream in those days, but later on, yes, everybody had brocream on their hair. And then there were a few more bodies scattered around in unnatural lying positions, like the bodies are mangled, broken. And then there was a pile of bodies that might have been 6 or 7 feet high, and they looked kind of pyramid shaped. It's hard to imagine that a pile of bodies could be pyramids, but that's how it was. And right by the side of the fuselage, there must have been some grown-ups who got there before we did, because these were bodies that somebody must have brought from within the plane, and right by the fuselage, they had laid them out in a nice straight line. About 8. When I say about, it could have been 6 or 9, I don't know. It seemed like about 8. Nobody had a hat on, but they all had broken, and they were in full uniform, as were the 2 who went feet first into the ground and head first. And then pile of bodies, they were not in uniform. I think it's something that we used to call a jumpsuit. They might have been paratroopers, I don't know.
And this would have been the German army, you think?
No, American army.
Oh, American.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, that's the, good. I forgot to mention that. It had the white star on the side of the plane. And as far as I can remember, it only had 2 engines. We actually looked inside the plane. There were no more bodies then. The bodies that were laid out, somebody brought them out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to line up 8 bodies.
Yeah. And did that, haunt you, or
no?
I mean, to a kid,
no, it was exciting. There's a warning.
Adventure.
In order to get to Kano, we had to go through Poland and Danzig and Königsberg, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was bombed to hell. So we were used to bombed out buildings. All right, what happened then? And there's more.
Well, I'm hoping, not to sidetrack you here, but that we're going to discuss when your family is slowly migrating to
we'll get to it, but
safe
these are
harbor.
the things that happened that, to us, it was something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Then we lived on the farm. On the farm next door, they had a son, a grandfather and a son, and a grandmother. The father was in the army, and his older brother, who was 19, he was in the army. But this particular kid that I'm on about now, he was Arva's friend. They worked together on the farm. And Arva was extremely well fed. On the farm they had chickens and pigs in those days, so a farmer was better off than most people. Whereas I was friends with a particular guy who owned the local pub. And I used to help him split wood. I'm 7 years old, 8 years old, and I could wield an axe. A little one, a hatchet. So when he got called in for a break in the morning for a cup of coffee or whatever, a bun, I used to sit and watch him eat, and nothing was ever offered to me. I worked with him day after day after day, including herding cattle, which they happened to have, even though they owned a pub. So, what did I want to say now? Yeah. Okay, about Horst Jonat. That is the kid, the 14-year-old from the next farm over, Ava's friend. Ava and I fooling around one day, so he's 14 years old, we do this, we're told, let's go and explore a little bit, because he must have heard that something had been dropped off an army truck. So right by behind the school, there's a wooded area, not just a wooded area, woods, lots and lots of trees, pine trees mostly. And we're sort of looking in amongst the pine trees, and we found boxes of something called a detonator. You blast this thing off to set off a bigger charge. And it looked about the size of, maybe not the size of a banana, it was straight, but about, like sausage maybe. And there's a lever on it. So he pulls that lever, throws it, nothing happened. He takes another one, pulls the lever, throws it, goes off with one hell of a bang. Hey, this is good. So he undoes his pants. He tucks his sweater into his pants, tightens the belt, and he's stuffing these detonator things. So he's loaded on. And so we set off, or he sets off a few more, and then we're right by I was on one side, I'm on this side. He pulls another one, that thing went off in his hand. His little finger, it was ripped, it was shredded to nothing, and it was hanging like here. This finger here, you could see the bone here, everything was exposed. So this finger is gone, and he was hopping on one leg in a circle. Av and I knocked down to the ground. We got up dazed. And he undid his belt, pulled his sweater out, and dumped all the stuff that he had loaded up. He was like a bomb. That detonator could have set that off, but it didn't. So he pulled the sweater down, he tucked his finger into his hand, pulled the sweater down. We have to walk from one end of the village to the other end where the farm is. When he got home, his grandfather got scissors out and cut what was dangling from his finger. And the bone here, that was exposed. A few days later, he had to go to Sternberg, the only doctor. And the doctor had no painkillers of any kind. So he had to take this bone out from here to there without any painkillers of any kind. So that's what happened then. All right, so now we're approaching the end of the war, and everybody knew that the war is lost. But what else I don't want to miss anything else, because okay, let's say it's the end of the war, just about. April the 30th, there's a town called Neustrelitz, not too far away from us, maybe 20 kilometers. We can hear that the fighting is going on. There's bombs being dropped, cannons going off. The whole sky's lit up. We know by tomorrow morning we're not going to be under German rule anymore. So, and the only fighting soldiers on the German side that we saw on the very last night, April 30th, 1945, was a guy sitting in a cannon that you could rotate back and forth. He had a cannon, the cannon part itself might have been 8 feet long. It might have fired bullets about as big as this, maybe that long. Bullets and missiles or whatever. And the other guy was his assistant. We brought him something to eat. And then all of us knew that it wouldn't be safe to sleep in the house. So we moved everybody in the house. There might have been 15, 20 of us. We all moved into the cellar, and we slept on a concrete floor. In the morning, it was just getting light. Our cellar door was kicked open, and with two Russians standing in the doorway with Tommy guns in their hands, with a round magazine. A lot of magazines are kind of shaped like this, with bullets in them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one was round. Apparently, it held 39 bullets. Well, they didn't shoot at us. Women and children, no men at all. And so they did a check of the house, no soldiers of any kind. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
They're gone. There's more and more. Russians came in by the hundred into the village. And we'd be outside watching them, tanks and trucks and everything going through there. Just, it was transition from what happened the day before to
Mm-hmm.
May the 1st. That's when the war finished for us. Officially, the war finished on May the 8th. That's official. But like I said, Russians invaded us on May the 1st. And they're all on their way to Berlin. And like I said, they were there by the hundreds. And the ones that were not in trucks, there were lots on foot. And the officers made them line up, and he did a head count. Did a head count, and they didn't march off, they ran off. Everybody's got a submachine gun, Tommy gun, and on the run, gone. Another pilot, the Russian pilot. And this carried on for about a day or two. And then we're still going to school. And so we go off to school one particular morning, maybe 4 or 5 days after we got invaded. And on the way back from school, Unter den Linden had a red chain link fence about 3 meters by 3 meters by about 2 meters high. And inside that chain link fence, in a square, they had dug a grave. And Russians had buried their dead. Not German dead, but Russian dead. And we heard different stories. There might have been 11 dead and 14 dead, who knows. No, but anyway, rumors about it. So we were just totally aghast. A chain link fence, painted red, with a monument that had a big red star on it. Okay, so what happens? We still go to school. We come home from school one day. The chain link fence is gone. The grave is open, surrounded by millions of flies. The whole open grave was totally black, up to a height of maybe 6, 7, 8 feet, with flies feeding on decomposing flesh, maybe.
Yeah. They can detect that from hundreds of miles away.
Yeah. So we live under occupation. We are occupied. The Russian troops that we had in our village, the assault troops had gone through. They're still fighting the war, but they leave an occupying force behind. And in our case, it might have been 3 soldiers to guard a bunch of women and children in our village. And the size of our village might have had about 30 homes, 4 people per home, so the total population maybe is 120, 150, somewhere around that, with no men anywhere. So, okay, I've done that. There's lots more to come.